everybody. Chris Goddin here, owner of Balance Wellness Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine, and we are continuing our series today of interviews with local Austin practitioners. I'm doing this series because I know how important it is to just have a group of practitioners at your disposal, and the knowledge base that you can get from these different practitioners who are doing different things will be so helpful. I'm an acupuncturist, and I do Chinese herbs as well. And there are a lot of things that I'm able to treat, and there are a ton of things that I am not good at treating. And so I'm really excited to be able to interview some of these amazing practitioners in the local area to learn about what they do, and hopefully you're going to learn something too. And today I'm really excited personally as well as professionally, because we have a parenting coach. Jeanette Hargreaves is here joining us today. And specifically, she's a parenting coach focused on helping parents who lose their temper a lot. She has an interesting story, which we'll get into, about how she kind of came to focus on this. But I'm personally excited about it because I have a 6 and a 4-year-old, and I'm pretty good about not losing my temper, but it happens. The 4-year-old especially is just a master at needling me in different ways. So I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from you, and probably end up getting your book too. So welcome, Jeanette. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great. So let's jump in, and I think a good place to start would just be to hear your story, basically, of how you came to focus on this as your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, one of the easy ways to put my story is that sadly I was raised by a dad who yelled and spanked us. He spanked us with his work boot. A lot of parents will spank their children with sticks or with belts. My dad chose the work boot. And when my kids were born, I was a yeller and a spanker too.
Yeah.
But it just did not feel right to me. It made me feel real yucky, and I would go to sleep at night feeling really guilty and telling myself that I wanted that to be the last time, over and over. And finally, I got some help from some professionals, probably a lot like the ones that you're interviewing.
Yeah.
And it helped me. And I thought, I want to help others break this cycle.
Yeah.
So I'm just so excited to do this work.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I find it to be such a common story, particularly with healthcare professionals who are kind of doing these niche professions where they're kind of really hyper focused on one area. It's because they just have a personal connection with it. And I mean, not to say that folks who, at the beginning of their life, like, I want to be a doctor, and they go through that, and I'm sure a lot of them become amazing doctors. But I think a lot of the time when folks have that kind of personal life story of like, I was really affected by this, and I got help from a professional, and now I want to be that person to help others, like, it just makes it so much stronger, your drive and your focus. So
yeah, absolutely. And something I talk about that's important is mentorship. So when you decide that you want to stop losing your temper, to me, there are 3 primary areas. The first area to think about is to think about the temper as a bad habit that you inherited. And I think that's just really key, because a lot of people experience the hot temper as either anger, which anger can be expressed in different ways. It doesn't, just because I don't lose my temper anymore doesn't mean that I don't feel angry sometimes, because I do.
mm-hmm.
And the second area to learn more about is emotional intelligence, which basically means, how do you identify and feel your feelings, all your feelings, including anger, sadness, stress, fear, and even happiness, in healthy, helpful ways instead of being hurtful. And then the third key area is to find your mentors, because at this point I've talked with thousands of people, And what I've realized is that there's sort of these social bubbles that are invisible. And I was in the yelling bubble.
Yeah.
And when you're in the yelling bubble, you think, oh, everyone yells, or everyone yells at your kids. And you need to search and find the people who are not in the yelling bubble, who either have made the transition and healed, or who were raised in self-regulated families who can help you. Because no one over here, and I've met priests, I've met doctors, I've met therapists even, who are still in the yelling bubble and unaware that there's a whole other way to express your anger or to discipline children, and they're not going to be the ones to help you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense, because I know that, that people are so influenced by the people that they are around for everything from, the social activities that they engage in, whether or not they go to church. I mean, the whole range of your day-to-day life. So it makes sense that, how people are interacting and disciplining their children is also certainly going to be influenced by the people that, they spend most of their time with, for sure. But that's also interesting what you said about, yelling and losing your temper is just a habit, because I know, like, when I lose my temper, it feels like I am out of control, right? And it doesn't feel like that's something that I can train myself to change, because it's just like it's gone. But tell me a little bit about how you start to go about making that habit change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know, Chris, that you're interested in the nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the ways to think about this habit is that it's a habit of your nervous system, that it's used to having this heightened moment at certain frequencies of the time of day, or maybe a certain time of week. Like, I've met people who lost their temper every Friday. There are certain people, I used to lose my temper every single morning before school.
Mm.
There are also certain holidays when some people, actually, I worked with a couple that lost their temper with each other almost every holiday.
Mm. Mm.
So if you can begin to recognize it as this habit that your body has,
Mm.
and not only you have it, but you train your other family members too.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you do, unknowingly and unconsciously. So let me give you an example. When I used to lose my temper in the mornings, and I decided to stop, I said to myself, and I told my family too, to prepare them for the change. I said, I am going to stop yelling in the mornings. At the beginning, when I stopped, their nervous systems were also used to this heightened event that was happening every morning. And so unconsciously, they tried to push me back into that old habit, because they sort of craved that hit.
Oh,
And in some ways you do get hits. You get a hit of adrenaline, you get a hit of cortisol. You even get this nice release afterwards, like, man, all right, I got this hit of adrenaline and now feeling good, kind of good afterwards. So even the kids or the husband who's being yelled at, their whole nervous system is going through that with you. And in the beginning, what I teach my clients is that when you notice that pushback, you want to turn the frustration that you feel into celebration. But turn the frustration into celebration. And here's why. Because when you can notice the pushback happening, it means that you're raising your awareness and you're on the way to breaking the habit.
Oh, that's such a great way to think about it. And it's also probably allowing your brain and nervous system to make new neural connections, right? When you start to make these changes, you're training your brain to view that as something really, really positive. You're thinking about celebration. So as you're making these conscious choices to be more calm, you're also telling your brain, this is a really good thing. Let's be really happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also really small practical things you can do as you notice those moments sort of creeping up, like, ooh, I'm feeling a little irritable
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
I might lose it today. Take some time to really soothe yourself. And one of the very basic techniques that I teach is yawning. I
yeah.
call it the perfect yawn.
Awesome.
And yeah, so when you're doing the perfect yawn, you want to open up the back of your throat, tilt your head side to side, maybe give your whole body a wiggle. There are all kinds of muscles and nerves up here, so you can give your scalp a rub, the back of your neck a rub. And as a nervous system person, you're helping to activate your parasympathetic nervous system when you do that. And it's such a natural, beautiful way that nature has gifted us to help release that stress that we're feeling.
That really is a good point, and it's something I certainly talk with my clients about a lot, particularly the ones that are dealing with stress and anxiety and sleep issues, or anything connected to that fight or flight response. That you know that when we're talking about that fight or flight or parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system, we're referring to the autonomic nervous system, which we've come to understand, or really it was named that because it's pretty much outside of our conscious control. Most of it we can't control, or most of us can't. I think there are some like Buddhist monks who can, change the temperature of their body, and they can change their heart rate and do all these amazing things. But for most of us, the autonomic nervous system governs our heart rate, and it governs our digestion and our immune system and all of these things in our body that we can't just say no, stop being stressed. I'm going to just flip that switch. But there are pieces of that where we can actually get in there and flip that switch, breath being such a big one. If we start breathing deeper, that nervous system, like, it switches over, because usually when you're stressed you should have a really shallow breath and quick breathing to make it so that you can run really fast. But using that trick to get into the autonomic nervous system, and these other tricks that you're mentioning of kind of stimulating these other parts of your nervous system that would not normally be stimulated in that fight or flight response, that's such a powerful way to get you out of that so that you can make better decisions.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I just love how simple it is. I mean, you can see your dogs and cats, they use it all the time. So let's use it. Something else that I love about the perfect yawn, Chris, is that it's contagious.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's known that one of the ways we can talk about all of this is that emotions are contagious. It also has to do with our nervous systems. And so stress is contagious. However, I want to shout from the rooftops that calm is contagious too. So if you've ever watched those nature shows where there's a bunch of lions on the prairie, in the savannah, they've just gone for their morning hunt and they had to be in a heightened state to hunt down their lunch. But then you see them laying down with the lion pride. And what do you see the mama and daddy lions doing? They're yawning.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe their little baby cubs like, play with me, play with me. And they're like yawning. And guess what happens? Their
Yeah.
little baby cubs yawn too. It's like their nervous systems, the mama and daddies, are signaling to the young ones that it's time
Yeah.
to chill out. So we can do that with our kids too.
Yeah, I mean, and that speaks to what we know about the nervous system with these mirror neurons, right? Because we've evolved for it to be so important for us to have social connection, which is another reason why coronavirus is so difficult for so many people right now. But it's a completely other topic of conversation. But because we've evolved to know that we need that connection, just being able to feel what other people feel, we have ways to do that, and that you can't really turn off. So that's really important when it comes to parenting, right? Because for all of us, we're just trying to raise kids who are happy and healthy, and hopefully don't take our our bad traits and just take the good ones. So training them to be able to regulate themselves is just huge, huge.
Absolutely. And that's something you can start when they're infants.
Mm.
So even if an infant, let's say, starts getting feisty during a diaper change,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell the infant, breathe, and then yawn. And you do it close to them so that they can see you. And to me, one of the keys is to allow the yawn to actually calm your own nervous system. One of the ways I can tell if I'm truly calmed down is if my diaphragm is released. The diaphragm is this muscle right here underneath the rib cage. And if I can yawn deeply enough, and sometimes it takes a pause, like where your diaphragm's like waiting for that perfect moment, and then you take the deeper breath and it releases, and your infant will take all of that in. And there's videos, because I wasn't equipped with this when I had infants,
Yeah.
but there are videos of parents doing this with their child, where when they're saying breathe, they take a yawn in front of their baby's face and they let their own nervous system calm down. The baby chills out.
Oh, that's just so wonderful, to know that you can have that effect when they're so young. So it doesn't seem like there's a too young to start doing this. Do you find in working with parents and families that there's a too old, a point of no return once you've
No.
gone too far?
No, actually, I've worked with grandmas and grandpas too.
Oh,
And
wow.
when you work with a matriarch or a patriarch in a family, you can have significant ripple effects,
Oh, yeah.
especially if you can, if we have any grandmas or grandpas listening right now, and you were a yeller or a spanker, as painful as it might be, something that might be really helpful is to go to your adult children and say, hey, sweethearts, I know that I was a yeller, or I know that I was a spanker, and I'm sorry about that. I recognize now that it's not okay to treat kids that way.
Mhm.
I did the best I could. And with my grandkids, I'd love to help you learn new ways to discipline.
Yeah, I could see how powerful and effective that would be to somebody, to just hear that. And like you said, that's great that if you're able to train the grandparents, the matriarchs and the patriarchs, you're having multi-generational effects on folks, which is
Yeah.
powerful. That's got.
Yeah. One of the keys when I'm working with a grandma or grandpa is to tell them that they did the best they could, because a lot of them still feel wounded from their own childhoods,
Mhm.
and they might feel a great deal of sadness even about how they parented their own children.
Mhm.
And that was part of my own healing. My parents are both dead now, but my dedication in the book is something like, for mom and dad, God rest your souls, you did the best you could.
Yeah, yeah, that is important, and I definitely did want to talk about your book. Let me read the title here. So, the day I threw banana bread and almost went to jail: true stories about how I used to lose my temper and how I learned to stop. I love that title, and I would imagine that it comes from a true story. Who did you throw the banana bread at?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you the title. Here I am
Oh, nice. Yeah.
throwing some bread. There's my little dog, Minnie, hoping that I will throw the bread.
Right. Be her lucky day.
Exactly. Yeah, I threw the bread at my dad.
Okay.
I was really mad at him one day. I had created this whole 4th of July party for him at my house, and he brought some banana bread that he makes, and his recipe has 7 bananas in it. So I say that it packs a wallop. Packs a wallop, yeah.
Yeah.
But he left the party early, and I went to his apartment, and I was just furious at him. And the rage comes from a lot of dynamics in our relationship. It comes from how he raised me. It also came from me. I was actually his caregiver for many years.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I had a lot of complicated emotions there. And I threw banana bread at him. And I did get in big trouble for it, but I'm not going to tell you how, because you're going to have to read the book if you want to find
Oh,
out.
wow, a teaser. Okay.
But that was actually one of my rock bottom moments.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when we have bad habits in our lives, it takes a rock bottom moment to say, wow, I got to make some changes in my life. And that was one of my rock bottom moments. I had a few others, but
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
one.
That's certainly one that at least you can look back on and be like, wow, I was so angry that I threw a loaf of banana bread at him. That's on one hand comical, and on the other hand, again, just like completely out of control. So it's great that you were able to take that and, start to make something positive out of it, that, I need to start getting more control over this temper, or else, who knows what I'll be holding the next time I feel like I need to throw something.
Absolutely. Well, and it ended up being a blessing that local authorities got involved,
Oh,
because
wow.
I think um, the incident might have passed by. Uh, I might not have thought about it so much
Yeah.
if that hadn't had happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're working with families, what is the most common thing that comes up? Like, are what do people either struggle with the most, or if there's a specific question where they're like, I can't get past this one thing. What is there one specific sticking point that you hear the most from folks?
I wouldn't say one, but I would say there are phases.
Oh, okay.
And the phases really are represented in my book.
Mm.
So part one is called How I Broke the Yelling Habit. And it's all about those self-regulation skills, like noticing when the stress is creeping up. I'm pointing to my neck because a lot of people, and they've done studies now that globally, people tend to feel our feelings in similar ways. So a lot of people feel a lump in the throat when they're sad. They feel an upset stomach when they're nervous. A lot of people will feel tension in the neck, or heat in the head, or their fists will be tight when they're stressed.
Mhm.
So to become aware of what you're feeling, and then to be able to calm yourself down, like with that yawn.
Yeah.
And there are conversations, I mentioned the yawn, but something else you can do to get yourself out of those automatic responses is to use language, because language pulls you into those higher levels of your brain.
Ah,
And research has shown over and over again, for example, if you're standing in front of someone who is yelling, and you can keep your own diaphragm released, keep your own nervous system calm. And I have different visualizations for that. Like they're on a crazy train and you're on your big calm train.
yeah.
But if you can use language and say, you're feeling upset because you didn't get promoted at work. You're stressed out about the money because you thought you were going to be making more.
Hmm.
If you can use this language of what I call feelings and values, then it can also really help your whole family with self-regulation.
Yeah.
So that's what part two is about. Part two is called Emotional Intelligence at Home.
Mm.
And each chapter has a different title, like what to do when your kid lies, what to do when your kid hits another kid. And these are just the very practical, down-to-earth steps that you use and the words you can say in order to make this shift in your family.
Oh, that must be so helpful for folks, just having like, having a script, so to speak. Yeah, I'm sure that script will have to be tweaked for any given individual to make it feel natural. But I know that's helped me in the past with various things that I've done in my life, mostly career oriented, but should be. I mean, your personal life is more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for me, the primary script, actually, Chris, I wanted to give this to your listeners. If they'd like it, they can go to my website, and there's a hidden page that I put up today for your listeners.
Oh, great.
So they go to my website, JeanetteHargreaves.com, and then they go to /the1. So this is the one technique that you can use to improve your relationships.
Okay.
And it has to do with what I'm talking about. So self-regulate, and then the script. And the script is basically connect with those feelings. So you're feeling blank because blank, and then connect with their values, because what I've seen is if you just talk about the feelings, sometimes they get stuck in, like, you're feeling irritated because you didn't get a promotion. They might just get stuck in that irritation. But if you can take it one step further and say, you really care about your job, you work very hard at it, that can bring them even into a higher level of awareness, and it can help them self-regulate more. And, it can teach you something about the person that you're speaking with. And sometimes it teaches them about themselves too. Like, oh, I do care about my job. Thank you. And there's part of them that's also really going to feel safe and loved with you in that moment. And, when we talk about the nervous system, we also can talk about what it means to our bodies and minds when we feel safe and loved. It helps regulate all of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And it makes me think about, I don't want to bring up too much politics, but just the political climate that we're in. There's just so much, bubbles, like you're talking about. There's so much division where I'm in this bubble and you're in this bubble, and there's no way that we could ever communicate. And with the holidays coming up, you might be butting heads with family members who are in another bubble. And it sounds like just through what you're talking about and through your book and everything that you've been able to research and put together, not only is this going to be helpful with your children, but it's also going to be helpful in allowing you to have a relationship with people that you don't agree with, period. Whether it's your kid or your uncle, or or a stranger on the street, whoever it might be. It's a lot of tools that you can use to help regulate yourself, but then also, because and let me know if you feel this way too, but because you're regulated, you're also able to reach out a little further and keep that groundedness, while being able to be more giving and understanding of other people.
Yes, absolutely. Chris, I get political texts.
Yeah, yeah.
And you would just laugh at what I write back to these folks.
Yeah.
No matter what they're texting me about, I usually say, I'm really interested in emotional intelligence and leadership.
Yeah.
One way or another. And usually they say, oh, I agree with you. I'm going to tell my leaders about that. And that's always what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
But let me say one important thing. And my cousin, who is a police officer, he's actually risen in the ranks, and he's a high-ranking FBI officer now.
Oh, wow.
We were talking about this the other day, and he said, what if everybody cleans up their backyards? And what he meant when he said by that is, if we can work on what's going on in our own houses, that's going to have ripple effects in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state, and your nation. So if you've been feeling irritated about a politician that you don't like, or even a celebrity that you disagree with, first look inward. I have my master's in divinity, so I'm going to pull out the Bible here.
Sure.
Jesus said, if you're pointing at the log in someone else, or the splinter in someone else's eye, look for the log in your own eye first. And let me tell you, that's sort of a practice that I have whenever I find myself feeling irritated with a leader or even a neighbor. I'll stop, I'll notice my own irritation with them and say, how am I like that person?
Mm, yeah. It's pretty clear, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's such an important thing for us to all be aware of and to remember these days. Um, that there's a lot of internal work that we're able to do for ourselves that are going to benefit everyone around us, our family, our community. Like you said. So um, people can obviously buy your book, which I'm probably going to be one of those people because it just sounds like amazing, and that I could use a lot of the skills from it. How else do people work with you, and who do you recommend? Are there camps of people that you'd recommend? You're the camp where you should definitely buy the book and go through the strategies this way, and maybe other folks who will work with you another way. How are you working with folks, and who do you work with?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm going to mention what I offer,
Okay.
and whatever sounds interesting. If something sounds interesting, I just recommend you go with that.
Yeah.
Try to trust your gut. So of course there's the book. Just recently, because I recognize there's so many families that have kids at home who are being homeschooled right now and need faster, easier help, I created this workbook that's available now for download and printing off of my website, and it's called 10 Steps to Stop Yelling.
Nice.
And this is like the quick down and dirty way, but you really gotta work through the steps in here. And it's like the most short, concise way I can put it for you when you're
Yeah.
working on this. I also offer what I call private parenting classes. They're confidential. We do it over the phone or over Zoom. Sometimes I work with an individual, and I can work with someone who yells, or I can work with someone who just has yelling in the house, who
Mm,
wants the yelling to stop. We're really going to work on your own personal relationship skills and what we were just talking about. Your shifts and your improvements are going to have those ripple effects in the other people, because we don't want to put any pressure on anybody else to change.
mm-hmm.
And then the third or the fourth offering that I have right now is that I speak with groups.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll do paid talks, and sometimes I'll do free talks. So if you have a group that you would like me to come and speak at, I can do that. I would love to do that either live or online.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, that's a lot of different ways that people can get this important information. And we'll put links up so that people know how to find your website and everything, and be able to get to your book, because again, this is just essential information for everybody, especially right now with the amount of anxiety and stress out there, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my one thing, some people in the entrepreneurial world, they talk about what's your one thing.
Uh-huh.
And if I could leave your listeners with one idea to stick with, it would be this: yelling is a habit you can break.
Yep.
That's
That's
it.
a good tagline. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all you need to know. I think that's pretty much where we started this interview too. So it's full circle that yeah, you can train yourself to break this habit just like any other habit. And it sounds like you've got the steps to do just that. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody who is watching here learned a lot. And we'll get all of your contact information up on the video here so that people can reach out to you if they have questions, and then purchase the book as well. So thank you again, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.